call to order the West Mifflin Area School District Work Session Agenda Meeting held in the West Mifflin Area Middle School, 81 Commonwealth Avenue, West Mifflin, PA 15122. The meeting begins at 7 p.m. Opening exercises. Pledge the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Ahern.
Here.
Alexandrov.
Here.
Bennett.
Here.
Engler.
Here.
Stelnick.
Here.
Marshall.
Here.
Mattis. DeCenzo. And Blazevich.
Here. Presentations.
Thank you, Mr. President. January is School Director Recognition Month, and that will be celebrated next week, giving a thanks to all the school board members for their time and dedication. Tonight we have one presentation live. It's by Alicia Henry. She is here from PNC Capital Markets to discuss bond refinance.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the School Board and Administration. Most of you are familiar faces, but it's new faces, hello, and thank you for the opportunity to see you tonight. I was last here in 2019, the last bond issue we did for West Mifflin Area School District. But you have two series of bonds that are callable. Your series of 2012, which has been callable for a little while, and your 2011A that just became callable this month. So some efficiencies in combining two bond issues into one. Does everybody have a handout, sort of landscape with my logo on the front? If you could skip past the first page, I tried to do a nice one-page summary of what the refinancing could mean to the school district. Any of this other information that I've summarized, my contact information is on the front page. I'd be welcome to give you more details. I brought the color copy so that I thought it would be easier for you to follow around. The dark blue box on the left-hand side is the district's existing debt service as it stands today. The first column is your aggregate gross debt service on a fiscal year basis. And the column next to it, you can see local share. That takes into account plan-con revenue associated with your bond issues. Maybe not a good thing, but a good thing for this refinancing. Neither of the two bond issues being contemplated today are receiving any plan-con revenue. So when you refinance bonds that are not receiving plan-con, the district recognizes 100% of the savings. Any questions so far? Okay, hearing none. The middle gray box is a pro forma if we were to have sold bonds this week, what interest rates would look like in the market today at your existing rating. The yields range from a 1.2% to a 2.5%, so we have a very, very good interest rate market. If I could take you to the very last column, projected refunding savings, and the columns are sort of shaded a sage green. Given the interest rates that you're paying now and what we could lower your interest rates to, we could provide the district with roughly $635,000 worth of debt service savings between now and when these bonds retire in 2033. For either of the bond issues contemplated, the 11s or 12s, none of the final maturities are being extended. This is the original term of their maturities. So there is no extension, and the savings is due 100% to lowering of the interest rates. Because of the existing structure of the two bonds we are refinancing, you'll see in bold, we are pushing as much savings as we physically can given the amortizations into fiscal year 21 and 22. Fiscal year 21 is estimated to be $135,000 and 22 is about $102,000. After that, we just took a level debt service approach through the rest of the years between $35,000 and $40,000 a year. For those of you who are new to bonds, bonds are not sold to the penny, they're sold in a $5,000 denomination. So that's why you won't see an exact level savings in any one year. The refinancing summary box in total, gross savings is $635,000. Net present value savings, which is a bond term, you get to receive 100% of the savings, but when we validate the economics of a refinancing, we do look at net present value. Your net present value is $586,000 at a 6.6%. And we would never recommend a refinancing that can't hit at least a 2% net present value savings test. Net present value, all it does is it takes the time value of money. Some of those savings are very in the near term, but also some of those savings are over 10 years from now. So that's why the net present value is slightly lower than the gross. The all-in TIC is a 2.9%. I'm sure we're all aware that there's some volatile things going on in the world, so I would tell you I have about 25 basis points of wiggle room in these numbers right now, so I am being conservative. So savings would actually be higher today. With a completely blue wave, we are expecting perhaps more stimulus money in spending, and it is everybody's best guess as to what future interest rates look like. But in the near term, we've really seen no change in between the election from December to now. So the best thing I can do is just be conservative with interest rates and allow some wiggle room within the savings targets. There are some notes underneath the big gray box. Again, we are refinancing or proposing the 2011 A's and 12s. The other thing I'd note is that we are assuming current interest rates on your existing rating. So something we would have to do is have that rating reaffirmed, and we are assuming interest rates that the rating would have to stay in the category that you are. I think I've hit every major point on this page. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm not hearing any.
The savings are net. Any costs, as I would never portray costs, the savings without doing those. So these savings are net after costs. If the school board so chooses, a resolution would be presented to you that I believe is in draft form. It has a lot of blanks in it that I think I've started to fill in. Anthony Ditka was waiting on some of the numbers I had for today. But if you would wish to move forward with this refinancing, then Anthony Ditka would come to your meeting next Thursday for a formal vote to proceed.
So doing this does not kick the can down the road. We're going to be in the exact same amortization schedule for payments, but it'll be less money even after some of the expenses for doing the reorder, for creating the new bonds, correct? So
100%. If you do nothing, these bonds are still going to mature in 2033. So I'm not altering any payment dates whatsoever.
so this is definitely net savings.
Definitely net savings, savings after costs, and no extension of term whatsoever. We are combining two bond issues into one, so we are lowering some administrative costs by simplifying some of your bonds outstanding that have annual ongoing costs. So this is really, there's no negative to doing this.
How will it affect our bond rating?
Well, the bond rating is something that I don't have any control over. You're rated by Standard & Poor's, so you will go before the rating agency. The last time you were there was 2019. The number one thing they're going to look at is what your fund balance has done in that period of time, and a lot of that's going to fall on Joe to paint a picture of what the district's doing now, how you managed COVID, and where you're going into the future. To be fair, the bond rating is the number one thing that's going to control the savings and the interest rates. By moving forward, There are no fees that have to be paid. Anthony nor I would collect a fee if this bond refinancing doesn't work, if the rates move against you. The one fee that you would pay if we got through the bond is a rating fee, and if we never price the bond issue, you'll have to pay a minimum of 70% of that rating fee. And Joe and I talked about that. They haven't released their 2021 fees yet, but it would be 70% of an $18,000 figure. So that's the only fee you have to pay to get to this point to pull the trigger, but I cannot sell bonds without a bond rating.
And you said that's usually 18,000?
Yeah, and it's set by Standard & Poor's, and it's based upon the size of the bond issue, so I'm estimating, but I'm within $1,000 of that.
So that's the risk?
That's the risk, 70% of that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It was nice to be here. I don't get to attend many live meetings, so thank you so very much for the opportunity. It's so much easier explaining these numbers when I'm looking into your eyes and I can see us. Maybe I'm connecting, so thank you. It's nice to be out of the house. You guys all stay safe and good luck with all you're managing right now at the district.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Mr. President, that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. No addendum items, no information items, Board Secretary, Business Managers Report.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a number of items on the agenda for your consideration next week. As always, there will be additional items that will be added to this before next week's meeting, but as it stands right now under Board of Directors A, number 1, this is a resolution that states that the board will not raise taxes this year above the Act 1 index, which is 4.2%. That equates to about 1.06 mils and change. So we passed this in lieu of preparing a preliminary budget because there's still a lot of unknown variables, and I think this will suit us for this year coming. Number 2 is to appoint Debbie Kostelnik as the representative, and David Marshall is the alternate representative to the Still Center Joint Operating Committee representing West Mifflin Area School District. Item number 3 are the proposed meeting dates for next school year. Under B, Finance, Mr. Sickles applied for and received a grant of $1,500 from Bettis. So it's customary that we acknowledge that grant and accept it. Number 2, these are real estate refunds from December, and I just got a stack of ones for January, so these numbers will change and they will go up. The IRS changed the mileage reimbursement rate or deductible rate, which we follow for reimbursement, down from 57.5% to 56 cents per mile. Under C, purchasing and contracting, every year we advertise bid for supplies and equipment, keeping in compliance with Section 807.1 of the Public School Code. Number 2 is to approve an agreement with Siemens for our fire alarm and life safety services from November 2020 to October 31st, 2023. And the costs are listed $28,335, $29,206, and $30,082 respectively. Number 3 is to authorize us to purchase from Office Depot and the TCPN. We do that every year. D is the minutes. E are the reports. F is the refunds subtracted from expenditures. And then our invoices. We have a handful of invoices from Legal Tax Service. We have November solicitor invoice, which we've already paid, so we're ratifying that as well. We're also ratifying a number of the legal tax invoices. And then there are 2 solicitor invoices for litigation. Those are 2 separate issues. And believe I should have a bill under Construction Fund 219. I haven't received it yet for Phase 4. And we had the P-card statements. And we had one executive session December 2nd under requisitions, others, personal legal issues. That's all I have, Mr. President. Is there any questions?
Joe, 5A3, you guys ensure that there's no important days or holidays? In 2 years I was on the board, we had meetings scheduled on a holiday.
Yes, yeah, May and Sarah looked it over,
Okay.
and there's no conflicts.
Joe, C2, the Simmons agreement, is that a public bid?
No, that's not a public bid.
It's proprietary of the door equipment, so,
Okay.
so they do all the fire inspections, and they do all the monitoring. So the calls that go out to the fire departments are done for that
So it coincides with our equipment.
consult.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sandy, is it also CoStar?
Co-stars?
Yeah.
I believe it is.
yeah, we actually did, Mrs. Wells did try to competitively price this program, unfortunately, because it is a proprietary system, they're the only ones that could do it.
Okay.
Also, in regards to Siemens, in the contract, it shows annual testing at Emerson, but not at Homeville. Is there a reason for that? And if we are no longer down the road going to own Emerson,
Correct.
will will our contract change?
Yes, if we do dispose of or sell Emerson, they will make adjustments to the pricing on it. And the home bill is done by
Simplex for now.
Simplex Cordell,
It's a different system.
different system.
Oh, wow,
Which
okay,
is Simplex for now is now Johnson Controls.
okay. Thank you.
And I would respectfully ask that we be billed quarterly from the solicitor.
I'll address that in executive session, Mrs. Stone.
Okay, thank you.
No reason for the delay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Esper. 6, district operations, none. Superintendent's report?
Thank you, Mr. President. Under A, Student Services, we have nothing up until we go to letter C. Village grounds, it's recommended the board approve or ratify the building permit list. We have the Augustino Wrestling Tournament being held at the main gym and the auxiliary gym, utilizing the high school. And also, we have the SAT testing on March 13th, June 5th, August 28th, and October 2nd. And that will be held at the high school as well. Under professional personnel, we have nothing. Under E, until we get to E, other, it's recommended the board approve the following student club and activity for the second semester at 50% compensation due to the sponsor just signed up and will start on the semester term. Under non-certified personnel, we have items 1 through 3. These are 3 unpaid request leaves of all employees. Under D, hiring and transfer, we'd like to we're asking the board to approve hiring 2 highly qualified part-time para-educators effective January 25th. And we're asking the board to ratify the hiring of Dylan Martin as a temporary district technology technician, which he started on October 26th. Athletic personnel, B, under resignation, we have Ron Glass, who's resigning as the middle school girls basketball coach. There'll be one more added to that for next week's meeting. There was a football coach that just resigned today, and we will have that on the agenda for you as well. Under C, hiring, it's recommended the board approve Darrell Carter for the middle school assistant track coach effective Friday, January 22nd. And under substitutes, we have nothing at this time, and also under conferences, we have nothing at this time. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Solz.
Mr. Stoll? With them going back into wrestling, I mean, our staff has done a great job keeping the facilities clean, but we did, I mean, a wrestling mat always seems to pick up, to be like the dirtiest in general. Are we really stepping forward and making sure those mats are clean? Because it's just, all they do is sweat on them.
Well, the wrestling mats have always been a priority to clean with the outbreak of the different marches and infantagos and stuff. So that's something we always do, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Did we talk about conferences? Did you cover conferences?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no conferences.
Board President's correspondence, there are none. Executive session discussion. We're having an executive session after this. So, there is none. Board reports, committee reports. Mr. Foles?
Yes, as we start into our committee portion, I will start with the safety and transportation. The first thing we'd like to ask is the committee recommend we add the Pspa contract onto this board meeting. This was the bus schooling that we're receiving through Pspa. It's Dr. McCullough, who's very well known and respected as a consultant for transportation. So we'd like to have that on the agenda. And the cost of that, I believe, is $7,500.
Is that just for them to do an assessment of it? Or what exactly are they gonna do? Is that monthly or just a one-time?
It's a one-time fee. We've already met with him twice to start the process by sharing data with him, and he's also sharing forms and so forth with us so that we could get that out of our audit. As everyone knows, that was in our audit as a finding, not having the proper transportation data.
So if they come back with their recommendations, is there somebody within the school district that's gonna oversee it? Will it be you or Mr. Solomon who exactly is gonna oversee the recommendations that we get from them?
Actually, Mr. Solomon and Mr. Esper and myself have been sitting in on the meeting, so we all have an understanding of what's going on.
Okay, I just wanna make sure who exactly that it goes.
We want multiple people to know how to do this, so that no one person's out there on the island.
Okay, that was my question. I was just curious to see who, it was gonna go through.
And as I just stated, we did meet with Dr. McCullough on December 22nd and the 7th. The other two items we will discuss in the executive session. Buildings and grounds, on December 22nd, we also met with Whistler Construction, and to talk about their progress at Homeville, as well as some of the other projects, to get them moving a little bit. Then Mrs. Wells also has an ABM update she'd like to share with us.
ABM is finalizing the controls. So we have several dates between now and the end of January that we'll be getting the O&M manuals. We'll be doing some walkthroughs for the whole project. And on January 27th and 28th, we'll be training on the controls for the buildings. So they're finalizing hooking in the lighting for the stadium and this campus so that we have control over those schedules for the lighting. Phase 4 is pretty much complete. The concrete steps at Clara Barton are finished. The only thing that they'll owe us is planting grass along that hillside that they dug up, and that will be in the spring. The bathroom stalls and the floor in the lobbies and restrooms at Clara Barton are finished. Homeville's classrooms are done. Painting in both gyms is done. The asphalt for the maintenance garage is finished. and as of this week, they finished the gutter guards at Homeville. The only thing with Homeville, we may have to investigate is getting some snow shields, so when the snow comes down the roof, that it's not clogging up where the gutter guards are and forming icicles so that it's dangerous for anybody to be under. So they are applying these snow guards on those roofs. And we're obviously waiting for it to snow to see if they're working. So that's progress that they've made. Any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Wells. And Mrs. Wells has also been very prudent on keeping up with these guys and moving them along with these outside contractors.
Hey, Sandy, I know we had issues with the concrete at Homeville that was too thin and it cracked. Did they ever fix that?
At Homeville or Clairmont?
I thought it was at Homeville. Did Debbie, do you remember?
That was a Claire Barker.
And there's one at Homeville that Mr. Hannah brought, or Clinton. It's outside, like when you walk out the back door.
We repaired that.
It was a whole pad.
I believe, I will look at it again, but it's
Okay.
been repaired.
Okay.
But there is a thin piece of Clairmont that I'm going to have them look at, when we do our walkthrough. And that's the new concrete that they put in last year.
We'd like to ask the Buildings and Grounds Committee to approve us putting a motion on this month's board meeting for the public sale for the Emerson leftover supplies and equipment that's over there. We would like to shoot for somewhere in the middle of February to get the school cleaned out and ready for sale. So if the committee's okay with that, we'd like to add that to the agenda.
Do we want to confirm that the Safety and Transportation Committee is okay with the Pspa? Going back to the Safety and Transportation Committee, is everyone okay with adding that Pspa to the agenda? Okay.
All right, finance, Mr. Esper.
Okay, we discussed the Act 1 resolution, which is on the agenda. We're currently starting to prepare the budget for next year. That'll be ongoing for a few months. I had shared with the board a mid-year revenue update. We've exceeded my projection on real estate taxes. I did stop at Mr. Hess's office, and we have about a $700,000 check still coming to us. So we did better than the 85 projection rate. So COVID didn't have as much of an effect on the local real estate taxes as I thought they may have. And on all other local sources of revenue, without the exception of Kennywood, which we've received nothing. They have a call into them. They're going to owe us something because they were open for some period of time, and I don't think it'll be a lot. So that's going to be probably about a $280,000 miss. And halfway through the year, every other projection, and again, I reduced all other local sources of income by 10%, and those are tracking at right about 50%. So, I mean, unfortunately, I was right on those numbers, and I would have rather been wrong on that too, but that's going to track pretty close to what was budgeted.
And the last item we'll discuss in executive session. Under athletics and activities, the first item will be discussed in executive session as well. We'd like to make sure everyone knows our games, our winter sport events are open to the public. Our limit is 200. We're going with the 20% rule as we had prior to the shutdown before the holiday season. Mrs. Wells' crew has already gone in and marked the seats, and keeping everyone distance. It's a first come, first served basis with tickets. And again, our gym, anything in the main gym is big enough for 200 people or less. This just came up this week. It is the overnight and out-of-state trip. Went through the board policies and so forth. Policy 121 deals with field trips. However, there is no parameters set as far as going on to an overnight or an out-of-state trip. So Mr. Solomon and I will work those parameters up so we have something to work from. And it'll be grades and attendance and so forth to make sure everyone's eligible to attend those type of things.
Does that cover, I'm not familiar with policies, and maybe you could just bring this back next week. But does that cover like requirements around like administrators who have to go, like do we send administrators on these trips? Do we have to have so many chaperones, adults per child, you know, per student?
Some policies do.
Yeah.
Some policies are laid it out that far where, you know, after one chaperone per 25 kids and so forth. If it's a mixed group, you have to take a male and female and so forth, yes.
I think that the more prescriptive we could be to give enough guidance to the general, you know, staff, so that they can understand what those parameters are, so they can better plan. You know, they got to plan to have a male and female, to plan to have 3 or 4 or 10 or however many. I think it'll be good for them. It'll be less questions for you too, and keep our kids safe when they're out of town.
Mr. Salt, what's considered a field trip? I know some, like, like if you take the kids down to the museum, the district pays for it, we bus them and everything, that's a field trip. Now, the baseball team goes to Florida for training, they do fundraising, and they sort of run through the boosters. What is that considered? Is
That's an overnight out-of-state trip. A field trip is usually tied into the curriculum somehow. It's educationally. So when you say you're going to go, you know, I mean, all teams do. The basketball teams go to Florida and so forth. It's not really an educational trip, but it's an experience that we don't want to deny our students or student athletes, or if the band wants to go to Disney and so forth. So we need some regulation as to how that operates when they go out of state and overnight, because again, who's traveling with them and the level of responsibility is high.
Right.
How far responsible?
Yes.
So we need to make sure that we have oversight over that.
Correct. As we continue our tours of the building and try to clean things up and get rid of things that aren't being used, we're going to ask the technology committee will permit us to put another motion on the agenda to seek the outdated technology removal. We have quite a bit of devices that are no longer useful for us or fit our system, so we'd like to start getting rid of those.
Is that going to cost money?
Good?
You know?
Mr. Stoltz, if I may, usually when you sell it, you sell them the same way you're selling the items at Emerson. We could possibly, if we want to sell some of those items, sell them at Emerson when we're having that sale.
Anything that's usable, we will sell it while that's an open house, but from what we understand, and Mr. Solomon chimed in, the system we used to run was more of a network base without any real towers or hard drives, so they're not useful for residential or personal use.
Yes.
Are we going to have to pay that recycle road? Yeah. I know there's some people have tough time getting rid of electronics nowadays, so a lot of times that's an expense, okay.
All right, moving down to the education. Mr. Solomon, would you like to weigh in on the math curriculum?
Yes, Mr. Souls. Since it's math's turn in the curriculum cycle, so a lot of things have been going on. First was Kate Banisak. She's the elementary department head for math. She put a team of teachers together. It also included principals and also Jen Basicki, the secondary math department head. They reviewed different curriculums and textbooks through a process. They put a lot of time into it. They handled themselves very professionally. It was very interesting and exciting to watch all these teachers work together. And they should be coming up with some sort of proposal to Mr. Souls and I, probably within the next 2 weeks, so we could see what types of costs that we're talking about. Another thing is, Mr. Souls, myself, also Kate Banisak and Jen Dazicki, we met with 2 individuals last week. One was Kevin Morrow. Kevin Morrow is a math specialist from the PDE. Very insightful individual, very educated. It was very refreshing to sit there and show some things. I learned some stuff myself. And actually in our meeting was Scott Hagee. Scott Hagee is the representative from On Hand at Insight. And exactly what that is that's a database that we keep all our information, particularly in math for this conversation. And although Scott Hagee and Kevin Morrow, I don't believe they even met each other before, it was a very positive conversation. I think that our teachers, our department heads in particular, learned a lot. And, I'm kind of excited moving forward. So those were the two main things that we've been dealing with in regards to the math curriculum.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Following up with what Mr. Solomon said with Mr. Hague, we're asking the committee if we can put the motion on to approve $4,000 for 20 hours of coaching for Mr. Hague to assist us with getting our curriculum online back into the data warehouse, and also start some training as a data warehouse so we can actually track where benchmarking is, IEPs, and so forth, and start utilizing that whole system again as a district.
And that's Ed Insight, we talked about that.
I'm sorry.
Ed Insight is the name of the system?
Ed Insight through On Hand Schools.
Right, okay.
Is the committee okay to put that on the agenda?
Yes.
Yes. The next item, we're sorry this have to bring us to the board, but the time frame in getting ready for Sample West Mifflin, which is at the end of February, isn't really possible at this time, nor with the restrictions. We don't think we could do it safely. So we would like to let the board know that we're going to cancel that for this year, but hopefully we'll have it back for next year in the 21-22 school year. That'll be going out on my Friday message as well as there'll be a letter on the website for parents.
Any chance of rescheduling it, or we just canceling it altogether?
I couldn't hear you.
Any chance of rescheduling it for later in the year, or just totally cancel it?
Once you start getting into that later into the spring in the high school, speech it picks up and, with all the other things going on, I wouldn't want to put that pressure on somebody at this time.
Okay.
So from what I understand, it's a first class event, and I don't want to just throw it together to say we did it.
Okay.
Do you know who helps organize that, or who's like mainly responsible for organizing that? I just know.
Mr. Solomon,
Okay.
who oversees the Sample West Middle?
It was central administration, and also I know Ms. Butko helped. She played a very integral role, and also Becky Samolka.
I just want to make sure that we don't lose track of it for next year, so that we have it on somebody's radar. Because I'm assuming it takes a couple months to plan something like that. So.
Well, actually, I know that there's even other individuals that help with that. I apologize for not naming them all, but there's actually a team together, and I know that they start meeting basically November-ish, maybe even a little sooner to start walking out. Some of the difficult parts of that is when you're looking at your graduate stars from the past, you have to give them a little bit of time, some of them with state and whatnot. So, but I can tell you that was a very enjoyable event that I've attended the last 2 years. So I don't think that anyone would want that to go away.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure, because sometimes, people are obviously going to be disappointed, as we are with many things that we're missing out on through the
Sure.
pandemic. I just want to make sure that we keep it on the radar for next spring.
And that, for one thing, since when Dr. Hoover moved it from the middle school over there, it just blew up with so many people, and it was such a great event.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us are going to forget about it.
Yeah, no, I know, yeah, for sure. It's like, it's important to a lot of people, so I just wasn't, I knew Dr. Hoover, he had a lot to do with that, and I didn't want it to, and now it's being canceled, I just didn't want it to, fall by the wayside or anybody, we have to scramble at the last minute or anything next year.
Mr. Solomon, can we let that staff know prior to the all-call that we decided to cancel it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
The next item we'd like to ask the committee to recommend to put onto the agenda is the Partner Up program through the Consortium for Public Education. It's a free program for students to job shadow and so forth. So it's no cost to the district, so I would ask the committee, we put that on the agenda for approval.
Mr. Schultz, is the program, so that it puts, like, if a kid wants to be with a carpenter, they work together. Now, like, is this who they're working with? Do they do background checks to make sure that?
And all that's take place, yes. And that's why a lot of people don't do the job shadowing anymore, because of all these restrictions they put on that. It's really hampered the program. But again, it still states push and career awareness.
So we have now would they report to you, like if 10 of our kids are working with somebody, everybody's good,
Yes.
we've done this thing?
Yes, this will go through the guidance office.
Okay.
And we'll let students know how to sign up and what's available.
The guidance counselor will roll this out to the students who are interested in this.
And parents, because I think students probably need a little motivation.
They'd have to get parent consent before we send them out of school.
Right. I'd be interested to hear more about it, actually.
All right, next item is the outdated textbooks. We'd like to ask the committee if we can put that on the agenda to remove any outdated textbooks within the secondary campus.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, Mr. Bennett, we did do that. We did that for Spanish. So we're going to just do a blanket to get rid of all outdated textbooks.
All right. Next item is the return to school plan. We met with the union leadership as well as the administrative team. It's going to be aggressive, but we're hoping February 1st to bring it back K through 3, 5 days a week. The hybrid option will be eliminated, but the remote option will still stay there. We're hoping over the next week to meet again with the union to work out some of the other details and get the plan is already in the process of being updated, as well as the PowerPoint to get that out to the parents and so forth. But as we come back, certain things we need to really stress is we'll social distance to the maximum ability we can and move forward with that. There may be some moving or jockeying the students into other classrooms, depending on the results from the survey, if what our percentage of students coming back and to the percentage of remote kids. So if we have a certain percentage still remote, we may have to just designate one teacher as a remote teacher and not actually see kids in person starting that time. So there's some logistics we still got to work out, but we're hopeful we can bring the K through 3 back the first week of February, and then every week after that bring back another school after that. So that'll be also in the Friday update, and we'll definitely make sure everything's up on the website and the all calls go out. So.
Are we planning on sending any parent surveys to see how many parents are interested in sending their students back to the building?
Yeah, we're going to have to survey to find out how many's actually coming back and who wants to stay remote. And again, that's a parent's choice. We're not pressuring anybody, but it's time. Our students are falling behind, and we need to do something. Just so the committee knows, we did submit our PCCD grant for $71,000. It's completed and submitted. That's going to get us the webcam for the classrooms, so teachers can actually teach live during that setting, as well as some other cleaning supplies to make sure we're sanitizing and disinfecting within the schools.
I have one quick question, I'm sorry, to go back to the return to school plan. Is that all day?
That's all day. 5 days a week, all day. Yes.
How
stringent than what PDE is, so it's a little bit longer of a process, a little more detailed, but they're usually pretty good with the turnaround time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we've been awarded,
The survey is still out?
That'll have to be next week. We have to get that all squared away before the 1st, so yes.
Mr. Bennett, we did get the award, we just have to let them know, you know, what we're gonna use it on, and make sure that we complete all the paperwork, so this is not a competitive grant.
When it said completed and submitted, I just thought we applied for it. I didn't know. It was already done.
Good. All right, on the back page, our last item under education, we have started building the school calendar for next year. We have it marked up, we've already met with the administration and union leadership to share it. We're proposing probably the starting date, off the top of my head, was August 24th for students, and their last day will be May 27th, with graduation that Friday, and teachers' last day would be June 1st. There's no snow days built into the school calendar for the upcoming year, since we're able, and we have the ability to go remote. So that cut out a few days. The in-service days and so forth, and all the vacations stayed about the same. We're just looking, those teachers' first day, I believe, is the week prior, which is, I believe, the 19th. So we will get that mock up to you, in case you have any input. We wanted to do the 23rd as a meet and greet for parents with the teachers within their schools. And then I believe the school conferences was the week of September 28th, 29th, and 30th, one at each school each evening. And under policy, we're going to ask the board, the committee for approval to add the PSBA contract, which is doing our policy updates, and they have started working on this already. I believe that was in the $11,000 price tag.
Wasn't it on another agenda and in another meeting?
Did we approve that, Mr.
Yeah,
President?
that may have been, I never got a chance to look. It may have been approved, so if it's approved,
I feel like.
it won't show up.
I know we talked about
Yeah, I don't know if we voted on it or we talked about it, but I know we talked about it.
It's been crazy since we got back.
it. And that's all I have for committee meetings until we go into executive session, Mr. Board President.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Solicitors report?
Our report will be in executive session. Thank you, Mr. President.
Matt, I have something for Skill Center.
You do, I'm sorry.
Yes, Skill Center?
I think we have to go through next week to, Nick, do you have anything for Skill Center?
No, I just wanted to report there is no meeting in January or July, but I would like to recognize two students for the extra effort in the second quarter, which is our kids, Tyler Main, who's a health assistant, and Quinn Cosley, who is our baking. So they did extra effort for the second quarter.
We want to definitely recognize them again next week, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Bring that back. Solicitors report be given in executive session. No student board representatives are present today. Old business? New business? No new business? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Marshall. Second?
Second.
Mrs. Postelnick? Meeting adjourned.